Okay, I got the green light, the camera's on, so we're ready to go. But again, there should be discussion, there should be, you should feel free to chime in. I'm just going to really start off by sharing a Rashi with you, but I think this Rashi is a very amazing one. It's one that it begs the question of what's really Rashi saying. I think it's such a sort of glaring type of question that you can either sort of embrace the Rashi and accept what he's saying, or you can do what other people do and sort of come up with a different shot. The Rashi doesn't mean what he actually says. I prefer to go with, the Rashi means exactly what he says. But let's take a look, let's see what the Rashi says, and we can analyze it. But in this week's parsha, again, there's no coincidences. The last two parshas before Shavuos every single year are B'chukosai and Bamidbar. So next week, the Shabbos, literally right before Shavuos. It's a 3-day Chag this year. Except normally it's Shabbos at the end. Here it's Shabbos in the beginning. But Shabbos is Parshas Bamidbar. And this Shabbos is B'chukosai. So, and it's sort of one of these, the beginning, it makes you feel very good, and then you start hearing a little bit more about the tochacha, about things that will happen if we don't follow the laws of Hashem, and it gets pretty serious and pretty frightening and pretty awesome, and it's a kind of parsha that makes you really think, because what the Torah predicts about what's going to happen, we saw, and I once heard a very wise man say, a lot of people said, the Holocaust convinced me there's no God. A lot of people say, how could there be a God if there's a Holocaust? How could 6 million Jews die? It can't happen. So, and the wise man once said, to me, it's just the opposite. Okay? The fact that the Holocaust happened convinced me that there's a God. Because the Torah absolutely predicted what was going to happen. And the Torah said that if things go sour and things go bad, and you guys don't follow the mitzvos, it's going to get horrific. So the very fact that we've seen throughout the exile, and especially during the horrific, this unspeakable time of World War II, that this was it was really nothing new. It's new, I guess, from our experience it was new, but from the fact that the Torah said this was going to happen, the horrors, so if you look at things from the right perspective, you can actually get chizuk and get strengthened even from very, very sad and tragic situations. But how do we get into this mess? Now, so the Rashi, the beginning of the parsha, sort of lays down the system by how we avoid this problem or get into the problem. And Rashi starts from the very first pasuk, Im b'chukosai telechu. If you follow in my statutes, you do the mitzvos, it's going to be smooth sailing. Everything's going to be great. You're going to have, you're going to have the sati gishmeicha b'itam. You're going to have the rain. You're going to have the crops. You're going to have blessing. It's all going to be good. You're going to be powerful. You're going to chase after your enemies. They're going to be running away from you. Everything's good. You do the mitzvahs. Everything's good. V'im lo, and if you don't, this is where it gets very dark. If you turn away from me, and I guess that's really maybe the discussion, were we bad before World War II? It was the state of Judaism. So I'm not a historian, so I'm not going to go there, but clearly the Torah does say, if we're not doing things right, it can get pretty horrific, pretty horrible. So what's right and what's wrong? What's the right way and what's the wrong way? How do we end up going in the right path, and how do we end up going in the wrong path? So Rashi says, "Im b'chukosai telechu tiu amelin b'Torah." So Rashi says, let me define what the pasuk is saying to us. The Torah says, if you want to be successful in life as a Jew, you must toil in Torah. You must toil in Torah. Now, we can debate what exactly that means. I don't think it means you have to be a kollel guy in yeshiva. I don't think it means you have to be a rabbi. Okay, I don't think that's what Rashi is saying. But Rashi is saying that if you want to be successful as a Jew, and the Mesilas Yesharim echoes this very clearly in his classic work, Mesilas Yesharim, the Path of the Just. He says, if you want to be able to deal with the Yetzer Hara, this is such a crazy world we're living in, and there's so many things out there that are pulling us away. If you want to know what the key is, toil in Torah. Toil, be an Omer b'Torah. And again, I don't think it's a question of how much time. I think it's a question of attitude and effort and energy. Where is your mind? Where is your head? Are you a person who's thinking about Torah, learning Torah, or are you not? And if you're divorced from Torah, if you're not toiling in Torah, if you're not, it's not part of your passion. I know, I'm sure, I don't know if anybody here goes, but I'm sure you've seen these Daf Yidin, where every single day they're walking they got their art scrolls in their hands, and they're running to the Daf Yomi shir, and they're running to another shir, and so they could be businessmen, they could be doctors, they could be lawyers, they could be anything, but there's a certain level of connection to real Torah study that's very clear. It's unmistakable. They have that. And if they have that, then you got a chance. In life, then you got a chance. If you don't have it, then it's not going to work. So let's see what Rashi says, because it's not just the first Rashi. Rashi, actually, if you follow through the parsha, Rashi gives you sort of the backstory of what's going on there. So Rashi says, if you toil in Torah, you're going to do the mitzvos, you're going to do the Ratzon Hashem, everything is going to be great. But if you don't toil, and again, this, we don't have the Chumash in front of us, but you can check it out when you get a chance later. Rashi is very, very clear. If you don't follow my statutes, and there's a 7-step process by which Rashi tells us, there is a 7-step digression, a 7-step movement downwards till a person ends up in an unbelievably horrific state. And where did it all start? It started from, because you didn't toil in my Torah. You didn't take it seriously. You didn't really care. Talmud Torah was not part of your life. It wasn't part of your passion. It wasn't something that you cared about. And it's very interesting. Again, this is where you get a little bit into trouble when it depends which audience you're talking to. This is a men's concept. Women, okay, we can debate this, but maybe I'm sure if there was some women they would be. I'm not chas v'shalom looking to insult women. Women are, as far as I'm concerned, as far as the Chazal are concerned, are higher than men. I always wonder why women want to be equal to men. Why would you want to be like us? You guys are so much better than us. Women have so much of a more natural connection to Hashem. They're more spiritual. They're just more softer. They don't have the same. A lot of the issues that we have. I'm not sure why their goal is to try to be the same as us and have the playing field flattened. But the point is, women are wired differently, and women don't have to. If they learn, it's great, but they don't have to learn Torah. If you tell me, in fact, I don't have to tell you the story about the Chavetz Chaim. They went to the Chavetz Chaim. In the Ashkenazi world, maybe you've heard about it as well. There's a very famous woman. And many rabbis said the most important Jew of the 20th century was not the Chavetz Chaim, was not Rav Moshe Feinstein, not Rav Shach, it was Sarah Schneer. The most important woman, the most important Jew of the 20th century was Sarah Schneer. What? Yes. Sarah Schneer was a woman, a simple girl, who was in Europe, and she looked around, and she saw that while there are boys learning in yeshiva, we were the girls who are going to want to marry these boys learning in yeshiva. They're part of this secular world. They were job. They were going to getting jobs and getting educated. They didn't have any strength and fabric to which to be pulled in the direction of yeshiva boys. Why should I marry a yeshiva boy? It was in the early 1900s. It was not in vogue. It was not something that was in style. It was strange. So she realized, what am I going to do? So she went to the Chavetz Chaim. She says, we have to start teaching girls Torah. Before then, women never learned Torah. You think the Gro's wife learned Torah, the Vilna Gaon's wife? The Baal Shem Tov? I mean, I don't know. I would bet you Baba Sali's wife did not learn Torah. Okay, she was a holy lady, but I'm sure she didn't sit there working on a Ramban and a Rashi. That was not women's domain. It was not anything that they were concerned with. They had different things to be concerned with. But so they went to the Chavetz Chaim. The Chavetz Chaim said, you're making a very good point. I'm going to let you learn Torah. It took a very major decision by the Chavetz Chaim in the early 1900s to say you can start teaching women Torah, and that's how we have the Beis Yaakov movement. That's how it all started. Without the Chavetz Chaim, it would not have happened. But he said, but I want you to know one thing. Just because the women of the future generations will start learning Rambans and Sefornos and Rambams and all types of commentary, I don't want you to think for a second that they were greater than the great Rebbitzins of our history who didn't learn. Don't make that mistake. We need it today. It's sort of like a medicine. You need it because you need some intellectual simulation of Torah for a woman to feel connected. But don't think for a second that the spiritual level requires it. Because women, again, as I said, are wired differently. But for men, in B'chukosei lo telechu says Rashi, if you don't find a connection to Torah, then you're going to find yourself in a downward progression. And what's a downward progression? So Rashi actually points it out. Number one, if you don't learn Torah, you're not going to follow the Torah. So it's not going to happen. Because, again, the Mesilas Yesharim says this. And it's a wonderful subject for Shavuos because we're about 9 days away from accepting the Torah. It is really important to appreciate what did we get when we got this Torah. We didn't just get a system of laws, which is certainly wonderful in its own right. What we got was a method by which we can connect to God in the most intimate way possible, and the rest of the world can't possibly relate to it. But there is a way to connect, and if you're a man, the way to connect is having some connection to Torah study. Okay, Baruch Shalom, listen, I'm talking obviously to a very sophisticated audience because you're here. I think I've said it last time, Thursday nights you can be other places. You choose to be here. And yes, the cholent is good and the sushi is great, but my hunch is a little bit of the reason why you're here is for the Torah learning. And that, basically says a lot about you. But you need to appreciate that what you're doing is not really an optional thing. What you're doing is an incredibly vital sustenance to your spiritual soul. Just like we need food for our physical body, we need Torah for our spiritual existence. And it says Rashi, if you don't, and I know it sounds like a bold statement, and I'm not here Chas v'Shalom to sound controversial, but Rashi basically says, if you find a man who does not learn Torah, you will not find a man who's doing all the mitzvos. Can't happen. Cannot happen. And I know that's why people don't like this Rashi, because how could that be? Come on, I see a lot of nice people. They don't learn any Torah, but they're wonderful Jews. They're sweet. They're kind. So, I don't know. I'm not here to. I'm just here to say that this is the classic pshat. It's not just what Rashi says. The Mesilas Yesharim says it. It's brought down in Shulchan Aruch as well. That Talmud Torah is an essential quality of our DNA, and if we don't have it, we're not going to be able to breathe. It's a famous Gemara, about Rabbi Akiva, and he says that basically the idea of trying to exist without Torah is like a fish trying to exist out of water. It just cannot happen. What's very fascinating is we also get a glimpse into the intellectual and psychological world of people, because Rashi says once you don't learn, it doesn't stop. Once you don't learn, you don't do. But just because you don't do, it doesn't stop there. Then what happens is you start hating the rabbis who teach the Torah to tell you what to do. In other words, and I'm sure you think about it, I'm sure we've met people in our lives that they're not comfortable just, okay, I'm not such a religious Jew, okay, fine. But why do you have to be upset that I'm religious? Like, why do you have to be upset that I'm going to a shir? What are you dragging me on a Saturday night? No, you're coming with me to the club. You're not going to some lava malka. Stop being ridiculous. No, you're coming with me. We're having a good time. Enough of this crazy stuff. Like, what is that about? So what's it about is that Rashi is giving us a glimpse that a person can't stay on one level. Intellectually, we need to defend what we do. Being a hypocrite is not easy. We can be hypocrites maybe for a little bit of time, but eventually what happens to us psychologically is that we need to justify our position. So if we don't do, we hate others that do, and we hate the rabbis who teach others what to do. Because it's not consistent. Like, if I'm not doing it, well, why are they doing it? And why is this rabbi telling them to do it? So we develop almost a negative view where we just simply become repulsed by these people. Now again, there are sweet people that we know that are not very religious, but I really believe many of these people just don't know. They're sweet and they're wonderful because they really never learned and were never given the opportunity. But someone who really understands what their responsibilities are and decides, I'm not learning Torah and I'm not doing that, it's going to lead to. So again, number one is you don't learn. Number two is then you don't do mitzvahs. Number three is you don't like the people who do mitzvahs. Number four is you hate the rabbis who teach the mitzvos. That's step number 4. Step 5 is I literally prevent the people who want to do mitzvahs from doing mitzvahs. I almost stand in their way because I need company, right? What's the famous expression? Misery loves company. So if I'm down in the dumps, and I'm down in the gutter, and I'm not doing good stuff, and I'm hanging out, and running around, and whatever I'm doing, I need company. I can't do that by myself and look at everybody else passing me by. So you literally go out of your way to be somebody who's actually going to stand in the way of other people doing mitzvahs. Sounds absurd, but that's what happens. But there's 2 more steps. That's step number 5. And all this is right in the Rashi. And you'd say, all this starts from not learning Torah, and not just not learning Torah, not toiling in Torah. Tiyu amelim in Torah. The word amel is a very interesting word. It involves passion and involvement and effort. That's what amelos represents. So we see it's a very important part of Torah. So there's 2 more steps. And you'd say, how could that be? But Rashi says it does not end there. Because if you're already preventing people from doing mitzvos, you're one step from the next step, and that is, I deny the mitzvos. Who says it ever happened? How do you know what ever happened? There was Shavuos. What, in the year 2448, God gave us a Torah? He didn't give us a Torah. Prove it. It's all a nice story. It's a nice fable. It's a myth. I mean, there are a lot of arguments that it's not a myth, a lot of proofs that this really happened, and one of the most fundamental proofs is that this event in the year 2448 that we're building up to in nine days from now, as tonight is the 41st night of the Omer. How do we know that it happened? It happened in front of 3 million people. Every other religion started with one person. One person had a vision, one person was convincing, and one person went to his disciples and said, follow me. Okay, there's not any other religion that did not start with that particular premise, that a individual convinced the multitude that I'm divine, that I'm godly, that I talk to God, that I have powers, whatever it might be. No other religion in all of history ever started from an event that the very religion, its foundational principle was 3 million people witnessed that event. So if I'm convincing enough, I can come here tonight, and if the food is good enough and I put enough alcohol into your system, I can convince you, that I spoke to God last night. He came to me in a dream, it was clear as day, and he told me that I'm some ordained, special, powerful person, and if you guys follow me, I'm going to lead you straight to the promised land. Okay, and you know what? There's a guy called, I think it was Jim Jones. Some of you might remember him from Guyana. He got about 350 people to drink poison Kool-Aid, and they drank. Not because they knew, because he was convincing enough, he was dynamic enough. So you know what? I want to go to heaven. I drink the poison Kool-Aid. Another guy does Applegate or whatever, in some white. There's another one that happened, maybe 10, 15 years ago. It happens.
75 people?
What?
Like 75 people did it?
Yeah, it was it's a significant number. And these were PhD people. These were not stupid people. So if you're charismatic enough, but if no matter how charismatic I am, if I come down, I say to you guys, listen, this is the deal. We're going to start a new religion. And the reason why we're going to start a new religion is because all of us last night together, we went on a spaceship to Mars. And we visited Martians. You all saw it. We were all together. We played poker with the Martians. We drank a l'chaim, and we flew back home. Because of that, so we all have to start a new religion. What are you going to say to me? There's the door. Get out of here. Okay, what are you, out of your mind? You need help. Because I can't tell you what you saw. I can tell you what I saw. You might be convinced, if I'm convincing enough, then you can believe what I saw. Right? They believed what Muhammad said he saw. They believed what Jesus said he saw. They believed it. He was dynamic enough, they believed it. But no religion would ever start when somebody says to 3 million people, this is what you saw. And that's why you should believe in the Torah, because all of you witnessed that the heavens opened up and God spoke to us. You'd say, what are you talking about? So the HaKadosh Baruch Hu, God was so wise. Obviously, he doesn't need my haskama, but he was the way he couched the Torah was he put it in a way where we can prove it and we can make it special and unique, because no other religion could ever be this way. So, as a result, so Hashem tells us. So this is This is the truth. This is what happened. And I'm telling you that if you want to be able to not deny the existence of the Torah, I need you to learn Torah. If you don't learn Torah, then you will come to deny Torah. But it doesn't stop there. Because, in other words, I can't believe if I don't keep Shabbos, I don't keep kosher, I don't do any of the mitzvos, so do I believe in them or don't I? Right? It gets back to the whole hypocrite words. I don't understand. So you have to be able to sort of justify your mental state, and therefore you say, you know what? There is no mitzvos. God never gave us the Torah. But there's only one step missing after that, and that's the 7th step. Exactly. Kofa Bicker.
Can I ask a fundamental question?
Sure.
So you're saying there's no Jewish religion or no Judaism until after the 10 Commandments were given?
Essentially, yes. I mean, in other words, there were historical events that made God choose the progeny of Abraham, and then Yitzchak, and then Yaakov to ultimately produce a Jewish people that would go out into the desert and receive the Torah.
Okay, so the covenant with God, say starting with Abraham, is not the beginning of Judaism. And you're saying that there's no a religion is usually a set of rules to help you be, say, spiritual. So starting with Abraham, he had no set of rules. I thought they always had a set of rules.
They knew the rules. They were not officially given the rules. Okay, Jacob married 2 sisters. How do you marry 2 sisters when the Torah says that's punishable by death? Okay, Moshe's father married his aunt. Amram married Yocheved. You can't marry an aunt once the Torah was given. So they did follow most of the laws, and because they had this sense of what God wanted, but it was not an official mandate and obligation until Hashem gave us the Torah.
As a nation.
Even as in the listen, it says the Ramban says Yaakov was allowed to marry 2 sisters because he was in Chutz La'aretz. That's how he married 2. But listen. On the one hand, it says Avrohom kept Pesach, Abraham kept Passover. Okay, so on the one hand, they did know mitzvos and they kept most of them, but it was not something that was an absolute mandate for them. They had leeway.
So they were Jews, but not Jewish.
Okay. Okay, if you can say it that way.
Isn't it I believe that the reason Bereshit starts with the B is because Avrohom had the first book, or Avrohom had a book with set of rules, which was not given, or we don't know where it is, or whatever. I heard that.
It's an interesting answer. It's not the classic answer. The Rabbi Bachai gives a different answer, but there are, you can have 100 answers to any one question. So it could be that's written somewhere. I'm not familiar with that answer. But Rabbi Bachai talks about the fact that the Torah starts with a Beis and ends with a Lamed, okay, to tell you that the central part of Judaism is Lev, okay, is your heart. Also, the other commentaries say that Beis, Aleph doesn't have a beginning. I mean, Aleph, the Torah has no really beginning and end because it's a constant cycle of continuous learning. If you open up a Gemara, in the first page of any Gemara, what's the first page on the top? Beis and Aleph. It doesn't start Aleph. It starts with Beis. Because if you start with an Aleph, it sounds like there's a real beginning. Torah is circular and constant, and it keeps going. So you don't want to give any beginning to Torah, and that's why it's another reason why it starts with a Beis. But so it comes out that really the mitzvos are the essential quality of Judaism. That's pretty clear. And we became a people in 9 days from now. That night is when we became the Jewish people officially as being Am Yisrael with the Torah that defined us as who we were. And it's a 3-pronged relationship. It's God, it's Israel, and it's the Torah. And those 3 are inseparable. And not, we basically, you can't have one without the other. So when you stop and you think about it, what Rashi is sort of telling us is that we look at Torah as sort of an intellectual endeavor. It's not an intellectual endeavor. It requires brains, but it's not intellectual. There is a certain requirement of passion, involvement, and connection to the soul that it's so required. It's so much part of what we need that if we don't have Torah, our soul can't survive, and if we have Torah, then our soul can thrive. But this is a central requirement and the central ingredient. Without it, we're lost. And there are many similar indicators to this point, and that's why again, I don't want to criticize. I'm not here to criticize, but Rabbi Salanta already 150, 170 years ago went around Europe, and he noticed that there were people who were very religious people, the long beards, the black coats, the whole spiel, and yet they weren't refined people. They learned a lot of Torah, but their character was flawed. They didn't have the proper character refinement that's necessary. So he started the Muslim movement because what he saw was that the Torah requires an entire package. It requires an entire investment. And if you're not totally bought in completely, then the Torah doesn't have that kind of impact upon you. So you need to focus on character traits, on being humble, on not being angry, of not being jealous. All of the things that haunt human beings on a regular basis, the envy and the rage and all ego. Different, what? Ego, absolutely. These are all things that really haunt us. And our job is to rid ourselves of this. And therefore, if we just have schools that only focus on the intellectual, what did you get in Gemara? What did you get? And they're not focusing at the same time very, very seriously on the midot, on the character development, they're missing a very, very important part of Torah. Because Torah is also, it's not about just the brain, it's about the heart, it's about the soul, it's about the emotion. And it's very interesting that the Or Chaim says, very famous Or Chaim, that says that when we next Saturday night, okay, or I should say Sunday morning, we learn through the night if we can stay up. We don't have to stay up all night. People stay up all night and then they sleep all through Shachris, and I don't really get that. Okay, so I learned already about 8 years ago. I give shurim till about 3:30. I put my head down in my office. I hop an hour and a half sleep, and I'm a human being for davening. But I look around, the room, and I see that everyone's sleeping. So what do we gain here? So we learned all night. Maybe we didn't concentrate that much for the last 2 hours, and then we're sleeping throughout Shachris and Musaf, and we have you can't do that. It doesn't work. A Jew's got to daven, so we have to really figure out what's best. But we stay up all night. We daven the next morning. We read the Torah. The Torah says a very amazing pasuk, which the Or Chaim, the great commentary, the Or Chaim says are the three essential qualities of accepting the Torah. And he says, Vayisu mirfidim. If you want to be able to accept the Torah, there are three ingredients. Vayisu mirfidim. The Jewish people traveled away from Refidim. Now Refidim seems like a name of a place. That's where Amalek attacked the Jewish people, was Refidim. But says the Mefarshim, Refidim also represents Rifyon. What's Rifyon? Rifyon...
Bitter?
No, Rifyon is like soft. It's softness. It's like they got lackadaisical. They didn't have that intensity of learning. They weren't focused. They sort of took it easy. They went out of Mitzrayim already. They conquered Amalek. Or actually, it was before even Amalek. And they sort of took it easy. When you take it easy, a Jew who relaxes, who Jews on, a Jew who's, a lot of times, what's that Vegas expression? What happens here stays here. Okay, a Jew can't think that way. Okay, because basically what that means is I'm a human being 360 days a year. 5 days, I go to Vegas and I become a different person. And it doesn't, don't worry about it because no one's going to know. And then what happens, it stays this. I can become I can lose it all. Jews can't lose it all, okay? Jews have to be Jews 365 days a year. That's just the way it is. So there can't be a slacking off of our commitment, to mitzvahs, to Torah. So that's number one. We have to be, again, focused, the same idea. Amelim b'Torah, we got to be into it. We got to try, and I'm not saying it's easy, but we really are very, very blessed. We're living in a world where literally any shir you want, in almost any language you want, you can find 24/7. There's almost, I want to learn about this. You just Google it, you find it, you get a share on it. It's really amazing. So we have very little excuses nowadays not to learn half hour a day, an hour a day, something. because it's there. It's all for the taking, and on almost any subject that we want, we can find it. So we've got to have that vayisru mirfidim. We got to walk away and travel away from that weakening to become intense. So the Jewish people, when they came to Sinai, they came with an intensity of a dedication of learning Torah. Then it says, Sinai, Sinai, so the next step, says Yoreh Chaim, is if you want to receive Torah, you have to be vayachanu b'midbar. Very interesting. Now, b'midbar means a desert. What does the desert mean from the rabbinic interpretation of the word desert? Desert doesn't just mean a desert. Desert means it's a certain type of personality. A desert is not fancy. A desert doesn't really stand out. A desert, what do you do with a desert? You walk on it. You trample upon it. Now, I'm not saying to be a shmat, I'm not saying to let people walk all over you, but the idea of a midbar is humility. The idea of a midbar is not to be flamboyant. It's just, to live your life and do what you need to do. And you want to have a nice car, but don't outdo the Joneses and you got to drive this and you got to have that and the 7 homes on the Mediterranean, all the by midbar, be humble. Be a humble person, and that's something that's very, very critical. And he explains again the same idea that we have a relationship. Torah is so supernatural. It's so metaphysical. It does not relate in the conventional way of the way a human being relates to other things. For example, you have a great scientist. A great scientist is one thing. He's a great scientist. Do you assume when you follow a great scientist home that you're going to find somebody who's got this amazing character? He's an unbelievable person, super kind, super sweet, super gentle? No, you just assume he's a great scientist. That's why he wrote the famous story about, was it Aristotle or Socrates? The disciple follows him home one day. This guy preaches all day about, high ethics, morality, and the disciple follows him home, opens the door. I'm not sure what he was doing, but it was a very debased kind of thing. I think it's written down what he was doing. I just don't know the historical fact of what he was doing. And when the student says, "Teacher, okay, what's going on? You talk about all this high level morality, and look at you." And the famous expression is a very famous quote: "Do what I say, don't do what I do."
It's from a play called The Clouds.
But who said it?
It's against Plato.
Plato? So it's Plato.
Plato.
Okay, thank you. Okay, well educated, Valley Torah. Well, okay, what?
Valley Torah.
No, yes. College? Okay, fine. Anyway, right? So what does that really mean? Because whatever I've accomplished is here. Whatever I know, I'm Plato. That means I'm a brilliant man. I'm one of the greatest minds in human history. But that's where it is. It stays here. Torah does not work that way. You can't have Torah here if you don't have the rest of the package of the humility and the sensitivity and the caring and the love and the kindness of what it takes to be an incredible Jew. It's all one thing. And if you don't have that, Torah will not rest on you. It will just not connect to you. And that's why the Jewish people had to be vayachnu b'midbar. They had to be in a desert-like state, meaning in a completely humble state. They had to be in no way trying to assert themselves, and that's one of the reasons why they're able to say those famous two words, Nasa v'nishma, because they didn't have that haughtiness to say, I'll decide whether I want to keep the Torah. They didn't say that. They said, Nasa v'nishma, whatever God you say we're going to do, and we're going to accept our marching orders. That's it. End of the story. So that's step number 2 that the Yoreh Chaim says. And step number 3 is, Vayichan Shom Yisrael neged ahar. The Jewish people, Vayichan, they encamped by the mountain, singular. The Jewish people needed to be one. And this is another prerequisite that the Yoreh Chaim says. If the Jewish people wanted to be able to accept the Torah, they needed achdut, they needed unity. They needed a non-judgmental, which goes together with humility, but it's more of a global type of concept. And you needed a people that were concerned with one another. They were together. And again, it's scary because, we're trying to get ready for Torah. And are we together? Are we one? Do we have unity? Is there not a lot of, movement and judgment and outdoing and whatever it is? There seems to be still, fragmented parts of the Jewish people, and that's a problem because at the end of the day, if we want to really be on the level to be able to receive the Torah, we've got to have that concept of Vayichan Shem Yisrael Neged Ahar, the Jewish people as one encamped by the mount. When Hashem saw that those three qualities were there, He said, "We're ready to go. Now we're ready, and now I can give you the Torah." And our job is to try to get back to that level. And that's interesting enough. That's what they say. Purim, right? There was actually a second time that God gave us the Torah. We re-accepted the Torah Purim time. Why? Because again, we had Achdut, we had unity. Because Haman was a common enemy, and we were frightened from Haman, so we all got together, we all prayed together, we all held each other's hands, and we had unity. I don't know. I mean, maybe we do, maybe we don't. I'm not sure if we have unity. My gut feeling is we still have a little bit of work to do. But the point, at least we have to work on it. And I'm just saying, that, so schools that only focus on the brain and not on the character and the emotions and the passion and the excitement and the love of Torah, it's going to fall short. And that's why I don't go to a lot of conferences, but I go to a number of them, and it's very interesting that over the last 10 years, the biggest issue facing the Jewish people, according to many rabbis, who are pulpit rabbis who deal with adults. I deal mostly with teenagers in my life. Obviously, you have a relationship with adults as well, but most of my involvement is with teenagers. But the people who are involved with adults, they say the number one problem facing Jews today is disconnected. There's nothing going. There's no passion. There's no involvement. They show up in shul. Maybe they go through the motions, but are they really involved in a Jewish way of thinking, in a Jewish way of life, a true desire to do the will of God? And you got to work on that. That does not come easily, and that's why again. It starts with a passion for Torah. It starts with an excitement to learn and a connection to learning, which is why when these people in Kiruv, it's very interesting, debate. If you ask Kiruv professionals, I mean, you work a lot in Kiruv. Yeah. So what would you say is what's the best way? This was actually a machlokus between Rabbi Twersky and the Rosh Yeshiva, Chofetz Chaim. Okay. What's the number one way to get to a not disconnected Jew, like a non-religious person on their road to tshuva, and they want to find out about Judaism and say, he walks through the door, doesn't know anything. Okay, right. So Rabbi Twersky said Shabbat table. The Yeshiva said Chumash and Rashi. Learn.
On the end they said both needed.
Right.
That's it.
Both. You need both.
Some people see it. See, we had a rabbi from Israel came here, assistant of Rabbi Yosef, up in Yishon of Gidon Ben Moshe. Came here, said, Rabbi, what do you see change? He said, a lot of Torah, but I don't see Judaism.
Really?
It's a lot of Torah, as you said, but not enough Judaism.
Yeah, right. So this is the problem. How do we get and think about it. How do you bring passion into Judaism? It's a big, big issue because, it's so amazing. We say the bracha every morning. Okay? Listen to the Baruch Atah Hashem, Elokeinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvosav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Now, la'asok b'divrei Torah? What do you mean, la'asok? Say, to learn Torah. Al natilas adayim, al natilas lulav, al l'tatef b'tzit, it's all physical actions. All of a sudden, la'asok b'divrei Torah? What's la'asok? What's asek? Asek, okay, you guys I should have the Persian words, not the Hebrew words. Okay, asek is business. It's got to be, right? I mean, most of them talking to business people, I imagine, right? I assume you're pretty passionate about your business, right? You're thinking about it, the deal. You're checking opportunities. If you're in stocks, 1:00 in the morning, maybe I can get on the Chinese market or something. You're always thinking. You're passionate. You're involved. You've got your blood and guts into what's going on. Well, that's how you have to be. La'asok b'divrei Torah. And what are the very next words? I assume your bracha is the same as ours. I'm not. No, it's not the same.
We don't have.
You don't have la'asok b'divrei Torah?
No, we don't. What you were saying before, we don't have.
But you have those words.
La'asok.
La'asok. You don't have that. You have. But then right after that, doesn't say v'harav no Hashem Elokeinu?
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
yeah.
No, I'm saying what you were saying earlier.
What were they saying? Which one?
What pasuk did you say a second ago?
La'asok b'divrei Torah.
No, we haven't.
Oh, so you have both. You have la'asok b'divrei Torah, and you have.
We have divrei Torah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, that's why I was like, that's it.
Wow. Okay. So this is okay. I mean, it'd be great to really get into the root of the machloket between the rabbis who say al divrei Torah, because that's classic. Al divrei Torah, al mitzvah suluv, al mitzvah tzitzis. It's okay, but clearly from the Ashkenaz, somebody in the Ashkenaz, one of the Rishonim said lasok b'divrei Torah. But we all have the next words. V'haravna. What's v'haravna? V'haravna means make it sweet. Please sweeten the Torah. Sweeten the Torah. What's a candy? What? Do we say sweeten the mitzvah of lulav? Sweeten tefillin? Sweeten Shabbos? Do the mitzvah sweeten. Because Torah is the one thing that it needs to have is sweetness. You got to love it. You got to be involved in it. Again, I mean, when you were in high school, you were an incredible student, and you loved every minute of learning. Right. But you do see a lot of people. You do see.
I just learned yesterday he actually went to school and with the tape recorder recording the lecture. That was an interesting surprise.
Superstar. Anyway, okay, but I mean, we every day you left, we had such a big smile on our face. We waved goodbye, So, but think about it. Why does this Torah need to be sweet? And the answer is because it's not like anything else. You need to have a very intimate relationship with it. It needs to be amelut b'Torah. Getting back to the earlier point, you got to be amel. You got to work. You got to be involved. You got to be passionate. It's got to be like la'asok. It's got to be like a. I mean, it should be greater than a business, but halavai. There's a famous Rabbi Avrohom Zakkai was on his deathbed. One of the great Tannam was on his deathbed, and his students came to him and said, Rabbi, before you leave, give us one last message. Give us one last concept that we should take with us as you move into the next world. And he said to them, you should fear God like you fear man. And they said, we should fear God like we fear man? That's it? He says, halavai. Yeah, let it be that. You should work on that level, and this is now going back 2,000 years. Because, we should have a lot more fear of God than fear of man. But you know what? The reality is we are human and we have limitations. So even though business should be secondary to Torah, but if we would learn Torah like we are passionate about our business, there'll be a lot of special people out there. Because there are people who work super hard in their business, but somehow when it comes to the Torah, they don't work as hard. They're not as involved. They're not as passionate. So the real, the real takeaway that I just wanted to share with you tonight is this concept that we look at Gemara and kids look at it, adults look at it, and they sort of see it as an intellectual endeavor. And a lot of them feel it's just not for me. I don't have the head for it. It doesn't work for me. And it maybe doesn't work for anybody, although I joke. I have guys I teach 12th grade. For many, many years I taught 9th grade. That was my main class. And then, whatever, as things changed a little bit, I moved into 12th grade. But I've had many kids, certainly in 9th grade, they're only 14 years old, and they're already convinced, I can't learn Gemara. It's not for me. I'm too stupid. I'm too dumb. I'm too this and I'm too that. And it's boring and it's irrelevant. I've heard every excuse under the sun. So you're too stupid to learn Gemara. Okay, I get that. So, but tell me, what was in the last 10 years? What was Kobe's point per game average in the last 10 seasons with the Lakers? And when they played in the playoffs, I just want to know what were the scores of the final games of the last, and they'll tell you everything. They'll tell you when he hit the shot, who he scored 71 points against, what his free throw percentage was. I mean, they'll know, now cars. There are kids, at 7 years old, they'll tell you which car, the cam engine, and this and that. And I mean, it's amazing. When you're excited about something, you become such an expert in it. It's remarkable. Okay, so don't tell me it's your head, your brain power. It's not your intellect. It's your emotion. It's your attitude. Because unfortunately, we haven't made it sweet enough. That's why when you guys cut the hair at 3, right? You also, some do, some don't. The Ashkenaz, literally, you don't.
We don't have the minhag, but a lot of Families,
They adopted.
pick
Adopted.
it up.
Okay, it's interesting. It's not Chassid. We also. I learned in a Litvish yeshiva.
By the way, what's the purpose for that?
Well, it's rooted in the concept of Orla that the first 3 years you don't use the fruits of the field. So it's sort of like sanctifying that child and the hair that grows, But bottom line is, where I come from in the Litvish world, it's not done. It's a Hasidic minig that a lot of people like. I guess maybe if they want to have a girl, they like having the boy look like a girl. For I don't know, but
I did.
huh?
Well, my 3 boys, I did.
You did? Yeah, I didn't either. But my sons do.
My son too.
Actually, 2 of my sons. 2 of my 3 sons do, but I didn't do it for my sons. But the point is that what was the point? Well, that's what happens when you try to get too many tangents in. So,
Some people cut the hair, some people
Intelligence
don't cut the
level.
hair.
right. So some people do, and some people right. Thank you. So when you're there at a hair cutting, what happens in addition to cutting the hair? The kid is introduced to Torah, olive days, and the olives are made with sweets and honey and sugar and beautiful candies, whatever. Why? To have that introduction for that young boy to Torah to be sweet. And it's a beautiful thing. But we have to keep trying to make it sweet and find ways to continue that it becomes sweet. So even if a person has the attitude that Gemara is not for me, and we can, debate whether it's true or not, but no part of Torah is for you. Again, going back to what I said before, there's some part of Torah that you would like, some subject, some area that we need to develop a connection to. It's critical. Because if a man is not connected to Torah, and that's why I say to kids, if you leave high school and you go on to college and you just go to college, you don't have any system by which you can continue to learn Torah, you are in danger. You are in severe danger. You're swimming in a sea of crocodiles. Because bottom line is, UCLA is a great school, but if you don't have a system to support you, to have a shul to come back to, so if you live in the community, you're part of a shul now, there's a great program, Link has a wonderful program. There are things you can do to stay connected. But if you're just out on an island and you're just devoid of the time to learn Torah, then you're going to be in very serious shape. And I'll end with a story about Achdut, because we mentioned those are the three aspects that we need for Shavuos. We need the intensity of learning, Vayisim Refidim, we need the humility, Vayachnu Bamidbar, and then we need the third thing, Vayichan Sham Yisrael Neged Har, that they came together as one. So there's a beautiful story. I once heard a story from Rabbi Byron about a taxi driver. I don't think I said it here, but a taxi driver who was leaving Yerushalayim on a Friday afternoon. You might have heard it way back in the Valley Torah days, but you probably
I was awake, wide awake.
yeah, absolutely. So he, the driver says to the people in the bus stop, "Listen, I'm going to Bnei Brak, and I'm leaving in 5 minutes, and there's no other Sheirutz. I'm the last one." You're the last one? You can't be the last one. There are like 16 people here. You can't be the last one. He says, "Listen, I'm the last one, and I'm not going to fight. I'm not going to get into any fights. Whoever's in my car in 5 minutes, when I finish my cigarette, I'm driving to Bnei Brak. Whoever's not in my car is not coming, and I'm not getting involved. I'm not deciding who is here first or second. I have no camera to see, Okay, so he smokes his cigarette, finishes his cigarette, 5 minutes, goes into his car, a few hours before Shabbos, closes the door, puts the ignition on, looks in his rear view mirror. 16 Jews are sitting in his little sheirut there with the 3-layered sheirut in Eretz Yisrael. Okay, doesn't say a word. Drives to Bnei Brak at 140 miles an hour, like a typical taxi driver in Israel. And he gets to Bnei Brak, and as he's driving to Bnei Brak, a cop sees him and pulls him over and gives him a ticket for driving with 16 people in a 7-passenger sheirut. So he has a court case. He shows up for the court case, and he says, the judge says, "Nu, Yaakov, what do you plead?" He says, "Your Honor, look at this ticket. This ticket says I was driving with 16 people in the car. My car is parked out in front. It's not possible. How can you can't fit 16 people in my car. What kind of ridiculous thing is that?" So he says, "You got a good point. We're moving the trial outside." So the judge takes the stenographer and takes everybody and comes to the car and looks at the thing. Yeah, this is the car, same license plate, everything's good. We're going to do a test. So the judge stops people and says, "Do me a favor. We have a little trial here. I need to borrow you for 2 minutes. Please get into the car." 6, 7, 8, 9. The 10th, the elbow's out. This one's in the tailpipe already. This one's in the glove compartment. 11, he can't even get in. Says, "Okay, let's go back upstairs." Bangs on the gavel. Says, "My official decision is you are not guilty." Okay, case is dismissed. The cab driver is walking away, and he says, "Yaakov, come here for a minute, please." He says, "Yes." He says, nobody else is there. He says, "Listen, you're not guilty. I already said you're not guilty, but between me and you, did you have 16 people in the car that day?" He says, "Of course I did." He says, "I understand. How? We just took the test. There's no way." He says, "No, Your Honor." He says, "You don't understand." He says, "When you stopped those people to get into that car, each person had a different agenda. This one had a hairstylist appointment. This one had to cut their nails. This one had to go to a business meeting. This one had to go here. You had 10 Jews with different ideas and different goals, and you try to strip them into a car. Not going to happen. 10 is the most. 11, forget, he's already out of the car. That day, I had 16 Jews with one common goal. We're getting to Bnei Brak. We got to get to Bnei Brak. When you have that kind of common vision, you can accomplish the world. That's the kind of connection we have to have with one another, that we have this common goal. And Be'ez Hashem, that common goal should obviously be to learn Torah, it should be to share Torah, it should be to get connected to one another, and that's Chus Be'ez Hashem to be a Samashech Meir.